you're not losing the weight you want to lose at the moment because you're making your fat loss harder than it needs to be. Here are 8 things I teach my clients to do to help them lose 10, 15, 20 kilos plus, and you can implement it for yourself, and they're probably things you haven't done before. You want to come along with me as I cook one of my meals? I'm in a mini cut, so you'll see how I eat, and I will share the tips with you along the way as well. Where did I put the chili? Wait, that's not it. No, it's alright. These are dried up. Do you see where I put the chili? It was just here. What the fuck? No, it's alright. Got it. Got the chili. So we're gonna make a beef, cabbage, and rice dish. Anyways, so tip number 1 is I want you to start reducing your ingredient list. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're trying to lose weight is they want to get really fancy with the meals and the ingredients, and as a result, it creates a lot of decision fatigue because every day or every week you have to sort of plan ahead for 100 different ingredients for these fancy meals. Whereas what I've noticed is the less ingredients you have in your plan and the less you need to worry about day to day, the better it is for you to stick to the actual plan long term because the meals are simpler. So a lot of our clients, when they first come in, they're like, I want a lot of variety. They want to eat something different every day. And literally a week or 2 weeks in, they're like, this is really hard to maintain. And it's not by coincidence, it's because there's so many choices they have to make on top of their work, on top of their family, on top of their other commitments in life. So we just simply strip it down. What I like to do is recommend 2 or 3 protein sources, 2 or 3 carb sources, 2 or 3 fat sources, and that way you can just mix and match. So something like protein could be just beef, chicken, fish, whereas carbs could be some fruits, rice, noodles, pasta, whatever you want. And then your fats could really just be like your avocado, your fatty cuts of meat and butter, for example. And then you just rotate, and then you use seasonings and flavoring to change up the meal. So the second thing is to stop optimizing for taste and variety. It does link to tip number 1, which is reducing that decision fatigue. If you have very simple meals that are repetitive, again, you don't have to think so much about what you're eating every single day. But there's also another reason for this. Typically, the more boring meals the ones that look boring, they're not super high on flavor. They're gonna be a lot more satiating, which means you get full on them a lot quicker because they're usually comprised of a lot more whole unprocessed foods anyway, which means you'll eat less of it naturally. And that's always gonna be a good thing when it comes to your weight loss. Noodles every day, bro. Now, this one's really simple, this third tip here. It's really just out of sight, out of mind. It sounds so simple because if you don't have something in front of you, you're most likely not going to think about it. But we can take this a step further, which is a lot of my clients, they have a hard time with snacking, they have a hard time with curbing cravings. But what we've found is that it's because it's always in front of them, whether it's a sibling buys it or whether it's a family member buys it, puts it in the pantry. Now, if you're not living on your own, it can be really hard to be like just cutting out everything. But something that you could do is just simply speak to the people in the household, ask them to just put the snacks that are maybe tempting you a little bit too much somewhere that you can't see, and just putting it in places where you don't know where it is. That's a thing that you could do. But if you are living on your own, it's simply not buying it when you actually go to the groceries, because again, if it's not in the house, the chances of you actually going for it is basically 0. Unless you go out of your way, make it an inconvenience to walk to the store, drive to the store and get the thing that you're trying to snack on. All right, so now we're gonna go to tip number 4, and you probably never heard this one before. It's actually just eating slower. Now, the main reason for eating slower is it gives your body time to register your fullness and the satiety signal to actually catch up with the food that you're eating. If you eat really quick, because there's that delay, you could end up eating a lot more than you're supposed to before you actually register that you're full. And so a really easy tip is just simply eating slower, being more mindful with every chew that you take, and just giving yourself the time to digest that food and absorb it properly. You scoff down your food, don't you?
He does eat fast.
You scoff down your food, huh? All right, tip number 5 is especially important if you're someone who gets hungry very easily. and you find yourself scoffing down your food. Now, obviously I told you to eat slower before, but it's a little bit easier said than done sometimes. Eat with a smaller spoon. It literally forces you to have to take smaller bites, eat slower, which again, make sure that you have time to register your fullness, which will naturally force you to eat less food and not scoff down the meal without realizing how many calories you're eating up. So small spoon like this, so small spoon like this, or just take small bites. Don't be a fucking pig. So tip number 6 is to identify when you're hungriest in the day so you can actually shuffle your calories around to match it. A big problem that my clients run into is being able to regulate their appetite during their work hours. They find that they get really hungry around midday and then peckish again at nighttime, and they end up just splurging as a result of that. But what we suggest is just looking over your day, looking at when you're bored, when you're hungriest, putting majority of the calories towards those hours. And that way you sort of curb that hunger a lot easier and a lot more efficiently, and it reduces the risk of you overeating later in the day because you've managed it properly. Now, tip number 7 is what I call the broccoli test. One of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to dieting and losing weight is managing their cravings. And I guess, again, trying to manage their hunger and knowing when to say no and knowing when to say yes. So a nice little test I get my clients doing is if they're having a really hard time with cravings and hunger and they can't think straight, it's basically just to ask themselves, would they eat a bowl of broccoli right now to curb that hunger? Because the chances are, if they're not willing to eat just pure broccoli, boiled, no flavor, no seasoning, they're probably not as hungry as they think they are, and as a result, they don't actually need to eat. You could do that with foods that you hate or anything that isn't as tasty. It's just a nice little way to keep you honest on if you're just bored, or if you're just being tempted by whatever's in front of you, or if you actually need to eat to pick yourself back up. It's good as. Now my last point for you today is for when you eat out. Naturally, you're not gonna be able to eat your own meal prep every single day for the next few months. You're in a weight loss program. You've got a social life, you've got a family life, so eating out is just part of the journey. The tip that I always give my clients is to go for the gluten-free, dairy-free options. Now, the reason why this works is because it auto-eliminates a lot of the very calorie-dense, super palatable foods, the things that are heavy in cream, the desserts, the fried stuff as well. It will automatically remove them from the menu for you, right? And it will steer your eyes towards the protein and the veg and the more whole, unprocessed foods on that menu. And so as a result, you keep your calories down. It's somewhat less palatable, which means you're gonna get full on it a lot easier as well. And that's just a nice little hack to make sure that you don't overdo it every time you go out to eat.